Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. Now, for those of you that are new, you obviously haven't seen this get up before, but this is usually how I come on here if it's been one of those late night cards. Now, there's been a huge amount of action this week in boxing. These late night ones, they don't get any easier, but you know, you just gotta grit your teeth and get down and watch them. And it helps obviously when it's an event or a card that you are happy to see or a fight that you're very interested in. But yeah, it doesn't get any easier having to do these. And I don't drink coffee or very rarely drink things with a lot of caffeine and stuff. So yeah, I've still got a very long day planned ahead, but such is life. Okay, so I want to kind of start, I guess, from the Christian Mabili versus Carlos Gongoro fight. Now, I actually didn't realize that was a 10 rounder. I thought it would be a 12 rounder. So when I think I did say that there's a chance that it could end up getting sort of stopped, I think around the 10th or the 11th. Yeah, obviously that's what I thought it was. I thought it was a 12 rounder. So it being a 10 rounder, I haven't been able to watch the entire fight. I was trying to get access to ESPN Plus, but I couldn't get access to it. Couldn't find the stream of it. I've only seen highlights of the fight, of a few rounds of it. So I need to watch that back. If I can get a decent enough one, then there will be a breakdown of that on Tuesday, most definitely, because that was a fight I was really looking forward to seeing. But from what I can see, Christian Mabili was taking the distance, and I did potentially see that being a scenario. But realistically, as hard as both of those guys hit, I never thought that would be the case. But I saw Carlos get hit with some shit, so I was like, raw. The fact he actually survived that was impressive. But yeah, from what I saw, it looked like a good fight for both. Looks like both guys got a lot out of it. All right, moving on to Friday. So I was half watching this one, but bear in mind the fact that, you know, Lyndon Arthur had a last minute replacement with Crichton because Brian Suarez was taken out for medical reasons. Kind of a nothing fight at that point. You know, that IBO light heavyweight title wasn't on the line, probably wasn't as motivated. I saw a caption on the interview he done afterwards basically saying that he underperformed. Yeah, fight didn't look that great. He got hit quite a bit in, you know, maybe times he shouldn't have, but again, because it's a last minute opponent, don't necessarily know the level of the opponent, don't know what they've been training for compared to what you've been training for, so you got to give blighs here and there. So, you know, he move on to his next fight, see what happens. Moving on to Saturday fight action. I got every single prediction right except for Andrew Kane versus Enoch Bluto. Now, I think I said that Kane would win on a points decision. I can't fully remember. I think I said points, but I did say that Bluto seems to be like a guy that will spoil your plans, you know, because he's had some fairly decent wins off of guys that, you know, were, I guess, highly touted, especially within that Queensberry rank. Now, just seeing from the very first round, obviously he got dropped twice. There was a third. There was a first one which wasn't counted, and then there was a fourth one also all within the first round which weren't counted, which would make you say, oh, like he's really in trouble here. But I think the thing that won that for Bluto is that Kane was specifically just looking for the knockout. He wasn't actually boxing, so there's a lot of rounds where he may have had one or two significant strikes, but you couldn't really say he won the round because he was just being outlanded and outworked by Bluto, even if he was having like massive success with maybe one punch or two punches within that round. I was watching it, but I didn't properly score it when I was watching it, so it's really hard to say whether it was the right decision for him to, you know, for Bluto to have got the decision. But ultimately, I guess he got the decision, and if you get knocked down twice in the fight and you still get decision, consensus would say that unless you were the A side of it and getting favorable judging scorecards, you probably did win that. So not really got any complaints, to be honest. Raven Chapman versus Linda Leko. I did say that I think Raven would get a points decision there. I was hoping that she would maybe be able to use her size to gain a knockout towards the later rounds, especially with obviously Leko being a last minute opponent, but Leko being someone who's clearly quite defensively responsible, very, very good head movement and upper body lateral movement, was able to sort of get out of the way of a lot of shots, which is where Raven's body attacks were, you know, sort of her bread and butter. The one thing I maybe would have liked to have seen her do a bit more was when she was in playing, like maybe a short right to the body, rather than sort of almost doing a what do you call it, like window wiper, like window washer, like bang 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 each side. Maybe stab one on the right hand side and then move off to the left and then use the right hand again to stab, or do the same thing on the left hand side, rather than just going from side to side where you've got one heavy shot and then each subsequent shot is maybe losing power because you're no longer at your you're no longer in sort of your greatest stance to generate the necessary power. And I feel like if you'd have done that a couple of times, that maybe would have offset Linda's ability to have read the situation, and then she could have ended up getting caught with like a harder shot that would have maybe taken her down earlier than obviously when she got dropped in the eighth, was it the 8th round or the 10th round. So yeah, it was a good performance, but obviously there's still things to work on, still more experience to garner, so you kind of move from there. Nathan Flatley versus Nathan Hina versus Jack Flatley. That was pretty much the same as the first fight, you know, minus obviously the cut and the way that the first fight ended. Hina was the better boxer, but neither guy had enough power to really trouble the other one, so they just kind of went the distance. But Hina, you know, pretty dominant in showing, similar to the first one. Definitely not a fight that anyone needs to see again, and definitely not a main event worthy fight, but it is what it was, to be honest. The card itself was, I didn't see the entire card, but I've seen enough of it. I didn't even really watch the Moses Atuma one. I think I fell asleep, if I'm honest, but I will go back and have a look, because no doubt he probably got a knockout within the first 2 rounds, which probably sound about reasonable. Don't know if you really want to be putting this guy on second to last on the cards, just because that just puts unnecessary pressure on him as a, you know, a young 18 up and comer. Not to mention Frank Warren cards usually go on extremely late. I mean, I'd think that main event finished at like 11:45. He's really got to start looking at either the amount of fights he's putting on cards or the times that his cards are starting, because yeah, you don't really want to be watching from like 7 o'clock all the way to 12, and there's no, you know, there's no big titles on the line, or there's no marquee names. It's a bit of a hard slog to get through. But I was watching, I didn't even really see a lot of the boxer card. I tried to watch it back afterwards, but again, I thought that card was nothing special. I saw what's his name? I saw Frasier Clark against Bogdan. As I said in the previous fight, Bogdan's normally good for 2, maybe 3 rounds, and then he'll find a place to give up. And lo and behold, after 2 rounds, exactly what happened. Now, supposedly he's got a broken rib, and that's why he pulled out of the fight. I don't know, but you know, with his, you know, with the fact that has, you know, previous for all of this, it's hard for me to take him at his word and just believe it was anything other than he just wanted the payday. And yeah, as soon as it got to a point where the gas was starting to empty a little bit, he said, forget it, which is a bit of a shame, because I actually thought he was doing quite well in the fight from what I saw. Like, he was landing on Frasier Clark, you know, quite, not consistently, but enough to trouble him, give him some work, and obviously to make him think. I don't know if it was a head clash or whatever, but Frasier, clearly he got cut just above the eye. And I did say he does have a problem with getting cuts, so, you know, against much better opposition, that's going to be a very big problem. So it's something they got to kind of sort out and figure out with regards to him. Yeah, pretty much after that, I saw Lawrence Okolie versus David, like, and that was a chore to get through, if I'm totally honest with you. Look, I was at Lawrence Okolie's last fight against Sislak, and I actually thought that fight wasn't terrible. Like, when I was in the arena, I didn't think it was bad. Likewise, the funny thing is, when I saw Lawrence versus Isaac Chamberlain, when I was there watching that live, that actually looked horrendous. But then when I watched it back on TV, it looked like a much better fight than what I had seen when I was in the arena. I don't know how this one looked in the arena, but I did see some videos on Twitter of multiple people leaving during like the mid rounds of the fight. So I don't know at what round it was, but yeah, it's a damning indictment that this is the guy that supposedly is going to be the face of Sky. I think they got to do whatever they can to keep him at cruiserweight, unless the whole plan now is to literally feed him to one of the other cruiserweights they've got in the hope that they can take the belt off him. Because at heavyweight, he's not going to be able to do half the things that he gets away with at cruiser with those guys that are just naturally bigger. The whole, you know, the grappling on the inside, the spoiling, the holding, he won't be able to do a lot of that, and if he does, he's going to end up being the one getting tired from it. So it will be interesting to see how his style switches up. Some people say it looks like he was caught between styles. I'm not totally sure, because he didn't look much different to his last fight. I think the year out hasn't helped, but ultimately you got to say part of that year out, the reason is your fault. You know, moving to Dubai, protracting these negotiations. You know, they say you've got one fight left. Just take the fight for activity. Like, you get paid for it, take it for activity, then go be your free agent and do what you want to do afterwards. But look, all of that is behind. I did say that he would, I said that I could see it being a boring affair where he gets a decision, but I was optimistically saying he would get a stoppage in the 10th round. And in the 10th round is when he actually did his best work of the fight and unloaded on David Light and hurt him with 3 straight rights pretty much in succession. But respect to David Light, I mean, that guy's got a chin on him. He's tough. He was able to weather the storms. His legs, you know, even when his legs sort of wobbled and buckled, they never stayed buckled. He's definitely got very good powers of recovery. So respect for him for that. But yeah, the less said about that, the better, and we move on. Going towards the top rank card, I was watching that as a natural card more than I was watching Benavidez versus Plant. Seniesa Estrada versus Tina Rubrecht was pretty much the way I said the fight would go, where I felt that Seniesa would get it on points. I did think that she would have strong early rounds, maybe sort of have to work a bit more in the middle and then sort of be strong towards the back end. But she employed a lot of back foot fighting in this fight, which is not something that she usually does. I don't necessarily agree with the scorecards. All of them were 100 to 90. Now, while I wasn't necessarily just scoring it for scoring's sake, again, I feel like there was times where maybe Tina was not given enough credit in certain rounds, and I could say you'd at least have to give her 1 of those 10 from what I saw. But the right person did win, and I said in the previous fight it was a 3-belt unification. It wasn't. It was 2 belts, which was the WBA and the WBC, but it was also at minimum weight and not light flyweight as I initially thought. I couldn't remember which one it was at the time. So Yekostavaye has the other 2 belts, the WBO and the IBF. So that is the unification fight to make next for the minimum weight division. Hopefully they can get that over the line, and then from there, as Seniesa said, she wants to move up to light fly, and then she wants to move up to fly and be undisputed in all 3 of those weight classes. So let's see what happens with that. Richard Comey and Jose Ramirez. Now this one, I actually thought it was a 10-rounder, because the last set of fights that Comey has been in have all been 10-rounders. So I said that I think that it will go the distance. I didn't think Richard would have enough power to hurt Jose Ramirez, but I did think that he would kind of get worn down, but he would have like a pretty, unanimous decision during the 10 rounds, or something like an 8-2 on the scorecards. Well, he went the 10 rounds and then ended up getting stopped at the end of towards the end of the 11th. So I guess I was kind of right in the sense that it's a 10-rounder, it goes the distance, but as it was a 12-rounder, he got the stoppage instead. But yeah, the right person, I predicted the right person in that. Now also, I moved straight over from that over to Benavidez versus Caleb Plant. That one, I predicted that between rounds 9 and 11, Benavidez would get a stoppage over Caleb. Caleb would be working extremely well in the first half of the fight, racking up the rounds, possibly even between a 5 to 6 rounds on the first sort of half of the scorecard, up to sort of the first 7, and then the gas tank will start to wear down when you know, just David Benavidez's work just starts to show. Now, he didn't actually throw as much shots as he usually does in terms of like his, you know, applied pressure. He was almost fighting a bit more like a boxer puncher than a pressure fighter in this fight. Both of them kind of were more so than usual. Now, in the first couple rounds, Caleb was actually doing very well, like keeping his feet sort of steady, like inching forward, inching back, you know, setting up jabs to the body, you know, overhand sort of rights and jabs to the head. But then he reverted to type pretty quickly from, I think, the second, third round onward. And now he started just to move and circle the ring. And him asking for a 22-foot ring when he knowingly has these perceived gas tank issues, to me was crazy. Probably should have just been in a 20-foot ring, said, all right, hold my feet, basically slip and counter, time this guy, and work that way, because that was when he was having his best success, when he was literally just exchanging with David. He was the faster guy, he was the more athletic, the more nimble guy, and that was doing him well. But second half of the fight, he was getting, you know, he started to sort of get broken down a bit more. He was getting caught with headshots, and then David Benavidez started to invest into the body from sort of round 7 onwards. So the first 6 rounds, he was pretty much just looking for the jab. But yeah, started investing into the body from about the 7th. And then that's where you could start to see that, you know, Caleb Plant didn't necessarily like that. Now, let's talk about the refereeing. I thought Kenny Bayless, I mean, look, he's not one of my favorite referees anyway, but I thought he was way too involved in this. Some people saying, oh, like he didn't warn Caleb for holding or clinching or whatever. I actually don't have an issue with that. My issue is anytime the two guys even got close to each other, he would jump in and break them up. There was some times I saw some very good openings for either guy to do a little bit of work on the inside, and you could kind of see that one guy was setting up to do that, and then all you hear is stop, 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 and then you're like, why are you getting in the middle right here when, like, then it's not like they're on a full-blown hug. They're in close. There was a time I even saw him, like, literally, I think Caleb had his head on David Benavidez's chest. His arms were free. And I heard Kenny Bayless say, work it out, work it out. It's like, well, they're not even embroiled in each other. So what are you telling them to work out? They're fine. Leave them alone. And then eventually he comes in and breaks them, even though their arms are separated. And he did that like consistently throughout the fight. Now, yeah, obviously you can't let too much holding and clinch and go ahead like after you've warned about it or whatever. But at this particular point, they're on the inside. Let them work on the inside. And there were several times where Caleb was hurt, and you could see that David was about to look to land something to either create some separation, or Caleb was just there sort of almost hanging on for dear life. And David's about to readjust to maybe, you know, attack and cause a potential knockdown. And then you hear Bayless jump in. As he jumps in, stops, breaks the two of them, which obviously gives Caleb a chance to recover. Now, I actually commend him for going the 12. I didn't think he would, but he was definitely assisted, I feel, by, you know, the referee's eagerness to be involved. And at times, I think it was in the end of the 11th round, Caleb was looking almost out on his feet. And at this point, Kenny Bayless splits them apart. And then he starts talking to Benavidez about something, I think something about the palm or the forearm or something like that. And then the bell goes. And then Caleb essentially like kind of wobbles back to his corner. So I'm just looking at this and I'm just like, there's numerous times you could have let the action flow and you just wanted to be the center of attention and jump in. So yeah, I tweeted afterwards, like, can we please give this guy his P45 now, because we really don't need to see him anymore. I feel like he didn't let action flow at times, and almost ruined what could have been, you know, I mean, it was a good fight, but I feel like he ruined what it could have been. And that's not from a knockout perspective, because I didn't really care if he got the KO or not. I just thought that there was times where the action was heating up and then you jump in for no reason at all. So yeah, with regards to that, as a weekend look, it was an extremely busy weekend. There was a lot of pretty good fights in and amongst mediocre cards. I can't speak to the quality of the entire PBC card because I didn't watch the entirety of it. Same with the top rank one. I will probably go back and try and watch the fights that I did miss. I've seen enough of the BT Sport card, the Queensbury card. I saw the fights on there that I wanted to see. Same with the Sky Sports and Boxer card, so I probably won't go back through those. The only one I'm really looking for is Christian Mobili and Carlos Gongoro. Once I watch that, then my weekend will pretty much be complete. But yeah, that's it for now. I probably won't be able to get another video out today just because I've got some things that I'm doing. I've got a delayed Mother's Day celebration. We agreed not to do it last week, so we will be doing that later on today. And yeah, I will leave it there. So look out for stuff throughout the week. I might get something up tomorrow and Wednesday. I might even end up doing a little something every day this week, who knows. But for right now, that's the weekend wrapped up. Thank you very much for watching. For all the new subscribers, yeah, get used to the format, get used to the platform. This is how we do it, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.